one of the goals I had was, okay, if we're not spending a lot of money on marketing, we don't have that budget yet. I've got to be the face of the company. I've got to get out there and be comfortable with social media, creating content on Instagram, TikTok, all of the platforms. And that was really what helped us get some exposure across the country.
Welcome to Built Online. I'm Cody McGuffie, and this podcast is all about one thing: building the business of your dreams. Selling art, teaching classes, starting a blog, launching a brand, whatever your passion is, we show you how to turn it into real income. I created EverBee to help anyone with a dream start and scale a business.
EverBee.
We now serve over 800,000 creators all across the globe. On this show, we bring on real entrepreneurs who've done it. They share their secrets, they share their failures, the exact steps that you can take to get started. What if you can get one golden nugget out of today's episode, and it's the breakthrough that takes you from just dreaming to actually living a life on your terms? At EverBee, we believe that every human is a creator, and every creator should own a business. Mark, what's going on?
Not much, Cody. Thanks for having me.
Happy you're here, man. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited to talk about your businesses, your life, your story. You own two main companies that I'm aware of, right? And one of them is not an online business, and it's a traditional HVAC and refrigeration company. That's how you describe it, right?
Yep. Local HVAC, refrigeration, and air filtration as well. We do a lot of air filtration.
Beautiful. And then you also have this other business, which is totally online business, which is called FiltersDirectUSA.com.
Yeah. That was a interesting switch up from a local service company to direct to consumer product. So yeah,
Beautiful.
a lot of challenges along the way, but it's been great.
On both, ups and downs on both of those businesses, trade-offs on both sides.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to dive deep on those things. But first, I think it's important to share a little bit about your backstory. From what I know, you come from humble beginnings and also a lot of struggles and trials to get to where you are today. So would you mind sharing with everybody else and myself? Tell us your story.
Yeah. So originally from the north of Ireland, a town called Belfast. That's kind of where I grew up till I was about 26. And mom and dad both worked very hard, two jobs, and kind of showed me the work ethic that I have today. And looking back, I thought that that's just normal to work that hard and do multiple jobs. But now I kind of realize that's kind of the symptoms and the pathway to entrepreneurship. I kind of refer to myself sometimes as the accidental entrepreneur because I thought I was just working hard, doing multiple jobs, but really it was setting me up for the future and diving into being an entrepreneur. But I met my wife Charlene in Belfast. She's from there also. And things were going really good. We had our first child, Kristen, back there, our first home, our first car, lots of firsts, and set up for success. But we traveled a couple of times to America. My wife actually had dual nationality, so that kind of helped us with the transfer over. But we just rented out our house one year and we just packed a suitcase each. I mean, literally one suitcase each, and left everything behind, all the furniture, everything we owned, and we said, let's go to America for 6 months and see what happens. And it was very emotional leaving everybody because you grew up with them, your family, your sisters, everybody. But we just wanted to take the leap and see where it took us. And
what drew you? What drew you particularly to US, and then where did you land also in US?
Yeah, so I mean that was definitely a lot to do with my wife because she'd been back and forth to America more than I had. But then we did some traveling together and we experienced it just on vacations, and I don't know, it just looked very intriguing. I remember seeing so many different small businesses and so much opportunity just on the vacations. I think, all right, we have to try this out. I don't want to live in regret thinking, what if we did that? But we landed in Florida first. When you leave Ireland, which is a pretty cold country, and we didn't really know many people other than just my wife's family. But her grandparents, Charlie and Ann, they had a holiday home in Florida. So naturally, coming from Ireland, all right, let's go to the sun. Let's go where some palm trees are and get a bit of sun. But I never forget on the plane, we were thinking, all right, what are we going to do when we get there? We've got somewhere to stay for a couple of weeks and a little bit of savings, but we've no jobs. Literally, we had nothing lined up. And I remember just thinking, I don't care, honey, I'll just work at McDonald's, whatever it takes. And again, not that that's a bad job, but just I felt like that could be an easy one to get into because there's so many McDonald's in America, right?
Sure.
On every street corner. But luckily, day two, my wife's grandfather Charlie, he had connections down in Florida, and he said, "Listen, got this air filter company guy that needs a helper. You know, are you interested?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." No idea what a friggin' air filter is, but I'll go talk to him. And we sat in a restaurant, a diner in Florida in Coral Springs, and I met one of the first influential people other than my dad. An instrumental guy in my life was Joe Bricketto, and he had an air filter company, and he looked across the table and said, "Hey, Mark, you're a pretty short guy. You know, this job requires carrying a ladder. Can you do that?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. You know, I've carried a ladder. I've climbed the ladder." I was kind of lying because I really hadn't done that much of that. I was working in an office back in Ireland, but he hired me on the spot and worked with him for 6 months. And then my wife wanted to move up to North Carolina because some of her family moved from New York, and that's where we came up. So Joe called another air conditioning company up in Raleigh, North Carolina, and just said, "I've got this Irish kid. He's been a really great worker over the last 6 months. Do you have anything for him?" And he didn't, but he interviewed me and he gave me another job on the spot. So I don't know if it's
How
the Irish accent that always got me across the door, but it
how old
worked.
were you at this time?
I was 27 years old at
Okay.
that
So
time.
like so not like super, super young, but also like, yeah, young enough to like you're willing to jump in attics, you're willing to do anything.
Yeah,
And you have
it
this
was
just
it was weird for me because I'd never really hopped around jobs. Like in Ireland, I think I had two jobs my entire,
mhm.
26, 27 years old. So that wasn't my mentality of kind of moving through jobs quickly. But when I got that one in Raleigh, that's the one I've been with for, over 18 years now. And eventually moved my way through the ranks to from a filter maintenance guy to learning about air conditioning, helping run the business. And then in 2019, me and my partner within the company, we purchased that mechanical company, local
The same
mechanical
business.
company. Yeah, FSI Mechanical that we still own today from the old ownership. Yep. Yep.
Wow. How big was FSI Mechanical at the time? Like that's the HVAC company, right? So you and your partner, or you and another guy are working inside this company.
Yeah.
How many years were you working at that company at that before you bought it?
I was there for 12 years.
Okay, so yeah, it's a good
So
amount of time.
yeah, within those 12 years, I mean, I started from the very beginning, just out changing air filters in a truck, then doing maintenance, and then I wanted to go learn more about that trade, so I went to night classes. While I was working during the day, I would come home, I'd go to night class to learn the trade about air conditioning, and then I thought I was going to be a technician at one point, but thankfully the owner of the company, Dave, he kind of saw more in me and said, "All right, Mark, you're kind of having an ability to gravitate and pull people together in a team, and they listen to you even though you're one of the new kids on the block." And he pulled me into the office to do more of a management role. And I definitely challenged him on that a little bit because I thought, hey, I got to set myself up for my future. I've got to learn how to be a technician and learn how to repair. But thankfully he had a bigger vision in mind and knew that I was better at management, and that kind of brought me into the office helping him. And eventually he stepped aside, and me and my partner Tim were running the entire thing at one point, probably about 15, 20 employees total.
Wow.
uh, but handling some of the biggest customers in the state, from public schools, charter schools, medical facilities, restaurants. Just we did it all.
Wow. What so 15, 20 employees, I imagine I'd be curious actually to how you think about the business valuation versus the revenue per employee or the profit per employee for that type of a business. It's a little bit different than an online business for sure, just because the margins are less, but also the
Yeah.
volume of dollars is typically higher, right?
Yeah.
Um, can you give us a ballpark or an understanding of what you purchased for that business if you're willing to share, and also the revenue amount, like anything that you can kind of help us grasp, like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
type of business
So the company at the time was probably doing about 1.3 million, somewhere in that range.
and revenue.
Um, that was gross sales. And in 2019, we had the company valued, and we purchased it for just over 1 million, which, looking back was kind of crazy for me because, I came from very humble beginnings and I didn't have much money even at that time in my bank account, certainly not $500,000.
Hmm.
Um, but knowing that there was a way to structure it where you could still purchase a company that you work for from within, because some of the older ownership wants to move on and maybe they can't get the market value for someone to just come in and purchase the entire thing and write them a check for it. So we did an owner finance, which was better for both of us because then we were able to purchase the company from within the profits of the business over a period of time. And
Beautiful.
obviously it was on us to grow it from, that revenue to better, and that's what we did over the last 7 years we've owned it. So
That's
it's been
beautiful.
great. And there was different levels of it. So we had a filter division, we had a maintenance division, we had a service division. So three different types of people, three different types of skill sets, and man, lots of different personalities within it. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges running a service business, is just understanding your people and knowing that you can't treat them all the same. Even though in a perfect world you'd like to think like that, but everybody's got their own challenges. One's a family man, he's got kids, he's got different struggles than a young guy that doesn't have kids. I mean, you just have to know them a little bit, not so much all about their personal life, but just know what kind of person they are, and how to sympathize with them and handle any issues that they have, so they can be a great employee.
For one point, you said 1.6 million in your revenue when you purchased it for about a million, right?
1.3.
1.3. And then I imagine EBITDA or profit on 1.3 is like probably 30%. So it's around, or maybe even less, maybe 20 to 30%. Does that seem about ballpark for
It was a lot less, especially in our industry. Back then it was probably around 10%.
okay.
Now
So
again, that.
130 grand in profit per year.
Mhm,
And you're paying one about $1 million for that business. That's like a
mhm.
10x
Yeah.
multiple on the profit. Was that standard at that time, or is that you knew you were paying a premium because you were getting good terms with the owner finance?
Yeah, yeah, we kind of knew, we knew we were getting a deal on that. It was the current market value, so we didn't pay any less than somebody else who would have come in. But the owner finance structure definitely helped us, and we kind of knew where we could take it. Although we were running the business, we weren't really involved with the financial part of it much, and we had some thoughts of how we could make this better. So as soon as we took it over, I mean, we just hit the ground running. We moved out of the
Mm,
facility we were in. We rented a brand new facility. Again, scary move because you're taking on more rent and on all that. But we just knew that we want to set up for success. We want our people to love the environment they come to work at. So part of that was moving us out of an old facility and putting us in something new, starting to get new vehicles, new trucks. Because when an employee comes to work, he jumps in that vehicle that he's in. That's his office. He's in that for the day. I don't want him to be breaking down every other week. I don't want him to worry, am I going to get to work? Am I going to get home to my kids' games because this old vehicle I'm driving is not reliable? So
mm.
that was the next thing that we really implemented very quickly, was let's get our people in something safe, reliable, so they enjoy coming to work.
How many years? So it's been 7 years since you purchased the business.
Yeah.
How have you and your partner done financially as far as like growing it? It's your job, right? Is your main job is like to grow the
Yeah.
business now to make sure that you've made a good investment. How have you guys done?
Yeah, we pretty much tripled, all of that. And
Congratulations.
the great thing about it is we didn't do it by tripling the employees. We wanted to keep the size that we had because we still consider ourselves a small business.
Of course,
Everyone hears the 10x and all that. Well, 10x doesn't always have to be, hey, let's
always
10x everything. Let's get a bigger building, bigger staff, bigger revenue. There's lots of ways that you can focus on growing the business where you can just make sure you're profitable better, within the same people. In fact, we have less employees than we did when we purchased the company.
no way.
But we're doing three times as much revenue than we did before.
You have three divisions. Did you end up cutting off one of those divisions and just focus on two or one, or what did you end up doing to triple and also stay the same size? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, so I mean, no, we today we have all three departments still.
Okay.
And we've definitely grown a little bit in each of them, but one of them in particular, the filter division, that's one where we have grown a lot more.
Okay.
Especially in our area, we had a niche thing where we could provide our filtration to businesses, but also provide the labor, the service people to go and actually change them. Which was very helpful to like public facilities, educational facilities that just didn't have the manpower to do it. They weren't doing it on time.
So, like, here's an example. So, I wanted to bring this home for the filter. So, and
Mhm.
so I understand it too. Literally, like a school down the road, they
Yep.
have a huge HVAC system, of course. And in that HVAC system, they have how many filters? 30, 50, 100 throughout
Yeah,
the.
so it depends on the size of school, but a school could have anything from 100 filters to 300.
Okay, so
Um,
150. Let's call it 200 filters for a
mhm.
school, and they have to change these filters every quarter, 3 months.
Yeah, typically every quarter is recommended. Some do it every 2 months, but a lot of these schools just didn't have the labor in the
Sure.
school to even do it every 3 months. So if we got an opportunity to go in and say, hey, let's come in and do a free inspection and we want to look at what you're doing and give you a better plan, we would go in there and find filters that hadn't been changed in years,
Hmm.
which is shocking to hear as a father of 3 kids, knowing that my kids may have been in these classrooms and just breathing this unhealthy air all the time, every day. Is it any wonder people are getting sick all the time from school?
Mhm.
It's not always the kids sharing illnesses. Sometimes it's the actual environment they're in.
So that actual department has actually been the majority of growth, sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
We did a lot
imagine
of them.
the profit is much higher on that specific thing because one, filters are much less cost than it is a full HVAC unit for cost of goods sold, and then two, the labor is fairly. It doesn't need extremely like probably skilled labor for this.
Yeah, exactly. You don't kind of have to pay the premium for that skilled labor that knows how to repair, and they're harder to find as well. In this industry, it's not easy to find a good skilled technician.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the maintenance in the filter division, we were able to pull in guys that are, any background. They could have been working at a restaurant, or they could have been working, as a mechanic or oil changing, facility. And when we say, hey, we'll bring you in, we'll train you up, and we'll pay you very well to just change filters, I mean, it's been a great success for us.
Beautiful. And also
But
recurs. It kind of if you get an account, it recurs like every quarter.
yeah,
In theory, it recurs every
yeah,
quarter.
and that's the way we've set our business up. A lot of air conditioning companies, have it where they're more reactive to repairs or emergencies. We wanted to have a good base where we have recurring revenue. So we have service contracts, we have recurring visits to do recurring maintenance, and therefore we have recurring revenue every month. So that's crucial for a business like ours where you're not having lows and highs throughout the year where you're either having to lay people off because it's hard to find good people to begin with. When you start laying them off because work dried up a little bit, that's just not a good model. So we have enough work throughout the year. It keeps steady revenue, steady work, and then all the service calls that come in on top of that is just extra. It's this extra work, ever extra revenue. But during COVID, obviously things slowed down for everybody,
Sure.
especially a business like ours, where a lot of the industries we were servicing all went home and they shut down the businesses. Now, thankfully, we were still essential services, so we were still open and handling whoever was still running their operations. Funny enough, back then it was a lot of pizza places. People ate a lot of pizza during COVID, which is
Wow.
not surprising. But we had a big account that we just signed before that happened, so we were really, you know, helped through that period from those pizza places that we still do.
How much do
But
you guys? How much revenue comes from new installs, like new like residential HVAC, or is it purely commercial that you guys focus on now?
so we only do commercial. We don't do any residential at all, and we don't do any real new construction or new. We would do a lot of switch out. So if a customer wanted to switch out their air conditioning unit, we do that, but we don't do like a new construction build up from the ground. But you know,
And also only commercial, like no residential. Like if it's a single family home, you're not touching it. Like you'll just turn that customer down.
exactly. Yeah, I never really wanted to get into residential. It's too saturated. It's a lot of mistrust in that industry. Unfortunately, a lot of air conditioning guys upselling stuff that the customer doesn't need, which was surprising to us to then jump into the residential market in the middle of COVID. Because what happened was we had a lot of our customers would call us and say, "Hey, we're starting to bring people back into the office, or the facility, but we need better air filtration." They wanted to improve it. Now it's top of their mind because they're more conscious about the indoor air quality. We
Mhm.
were always that way, but now they're thinking about it more. And that's when the light bulb moment went off for me. When that call came in, multiple calls, I was like, all right, we have to figure out a better way to make this product and provide it for homes because a
Mm,
lot of times that's the new office. People have moved out of the office, working from home. Will they ever go back to the office? Maybe, but the home is now becoming the new office, and
mm.
therefore they're running their air conditioning more. They care about indoor air quality more. So that set us off on a path to create our own air filter because we already knew about it. We were, I would say, the experts in this field, not just air conditioning, but air filtration. So we went on a path to invent our own, and that's what we did with Filters Direct USA.
Beautiful. Great transition because I do want to start diving into Filters Direct USA now. So this product, you actually You actually invented this yourself, you and your partner.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as that thought came into how do I do this for homes, I had a little bit of background with 3D design and art and design back in Ireland when I went to community college. So as soon as that happened, I'm drawing sketches out, I'm designing, I'm doing prototyping. We're kind of spitballing some ideas on how we could do this and make it more eco-friendly, more healthier for the home. And we started taking those prototypes to local companies, local plastics manufacturers to try to figure out how do we actually get a working prototype.
Hmm.
And we even ship one over to China to see how they would do with it, and they made a great product. But Tim is from North Carolina, born and bred, and obviously I'm an immigrant from Ireland, but this is my new home. I have my kids here, they're all American citizens, and we just wanted to make it here, first of all in the US, but the further we got into it, we were like, we could make this in our own state. We could make it in North Carolina, and
Mm.
then eventually we can make it ourselves. Like, why do we have to outsource? We've got enough room in our facility to make this thing ourselves. So
So you guys are making it
that,
yourself.
yeah, we're making it ourselves.
Mm.
We're fulfilling ourselves. Like, everything happens when an order comes in. We fulfill we fulfill it from our facility in Garner, North Carolina. We ship it from here to any state in the U.S. now. I think we're in about 32 states in the U.S. now.
Wow. I want to talk about the product and then move into like the business aspect of it too, because a lot of people they want to understand the product listening to this, but also they want to understand like the move into this business, because many people listening to this want to make that move that you've successfully done. And also they have ideas, they're creative, and they have an online business they're trying to scale, which is what
Yeah,
you're doing too. So for the air filter, I'm looking at, for example, the 12 by 12 by 1 home air filter, MERV 9, if I'm saying that properly. Um, what problems did you see with the existing product in the market and that you guys were using every day and installing, and that you wanted to solve with your product? Like, what made it different?
yeah, sure. So there was a couple of major things with the filtration that's out there right now. One is the cheapest on the market, right? Anyone that goes to the store and buys the cheapest air filter they can find, either because their air conditioning guy said, well, you got to put the cheapest one in there because you want good airflow. But the problem with that is it's not a filter. It just lets so much airflow, but it lets everything else through as well. So those are the filters you can hold up, and it's like a fiberglass, and you can see right through it. So that was
Mm.
one issue with the filters on the market. The other issue was the more expensive filter, and especially during COVID, everyone was pushed to do MERV 13. Go up as high as you can on the MERV rating to collect the small particles. But the problem that restricted too much airflow.
It's hard on the
Um,
HVAC, right?
it is, yeah. It puts a struggle on the air conditioning, and when air in the home or facility gets stagnant because it's not moving, that creates more health issues. So we wanted to make sure we have a product that tackles both. It wants to let the air conditioning breathe, so that's healthy, but it also is a filter that stops and kills bacteria and all that, to keep the home healthy and keep the people in home healthy. So that was the balance between both that we had to come up with, but also make a product that was a little bit more eco-friendly and less waste, because all of those products are out there. They got the material in the middle. They got wire metal on the back. They've got cardboard. I mean, it's just a lot of waste. A lot of
Mhm.
wasted materials. So we wanted to come up with a product that doesn't have so much waste, and that's
Mm.
what we did with our plastic reusable filter frame. So when we make this filter structure, that the customer gets that free with the first order, and they keep it. So then we send the refills. So we send the inserts. So it's
Mm.
just less waste on the environment.
Beautiful. And your guys' customers are, uh, who would you describe your customer? It's not commercial. It's just normal consumers, like somebody like me that owns a home, my neighbor, they would be customers. Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah, Cody. I mean, most of this was designed for the homeowner, but we have had some industries across other states that have saw it and say, "Wow, that would be great where I am." Like, I grow mushrooms, and the filters we use just collapse because of the condensation, the moisture in the
Mhm.
air. So the regular pleated filters was disintegrating, and because ours is a plastic structure, that just worked a lot better for them. That could be the same for the hemp and marijuana industry that we're about to tap into, because same kind of situation. They're using air filters, but they're in such a moisture environment that they can't use the
Mhm.
regular cardboard ones without having to replace them so often. But yeah, it's definitely for the homeowner. The challenges we have is that homeowners, they know they have to do this, but they never remember to do it. And it's such an important thing that is left out because it's hidden, right? They put it behind this filter grill on the wall or up in the air conditioning unit, and they just don't remember.
Sure.
The home life
You
is so busy. And I just had it, literally yesterday. It's a quick story. So my wife's grandfather calls me. He knows I'm in air conditioning. He said, like, I don't want to bother you too much, Mark, but my heating's not working. And the first thing I asked him, I mean, he's 80 years old, lives with his wife, that both of them are aged. But the first thing I asked him was, listen, Charlie, I know I own a filter company. Just go check your filters for me. That's the first thing I want you to do. And as soon as he came back, he says, oh, yeah, that thing's been in there quite a while. And it looked to me like it was probably a year or
Mhm.
more in his home. And that's why his heating wasn't working. They couldn't get any air through a really dirty filter. So those are the kind of challenges out there that people forget about, that they end up spending hundreds of dollars on an air conditioning call that could have been prevented if they just had to set themselves up on an auto delivery of a filter.
Interesting. When did you start this specific business, Filters Direct USA?
So middle of COVID was the first path started, was right in 2020. Now it took us quite a while in product development and trying to get a working prototype. So we hired a local company because we didn't know much about direct to consumer. We didn't know much about selling a product like that. So what we did was hired a local consultant group called Sherpa Collaborative, and we knew some of the guys in the business, but we hired them for a year. They knew a lot about that world, and they were really helpful to kind of get us on the right path of
Mhm.
getting prototypes made, coming up with the logos, just building a Shopify to get us started. All of that was just really, really helpful to us, being that we're air conditioning guys that are
Mhm.
running a service business and
Mhm.
don't know anything about online. So anyone out there, I would definitely recommend, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of your own money up front to get some consultants in, because it just puts you on the right path and maybe gets you there a little quicker than what you would try to do on your own.
How's business so far? How many of you guys sold, ballpark, or however you measure success in that business, inspired the people who are like, I want to do that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we just hit 32 states last week, which every time I get a new customer in a state, even if it's one customer, I feel like
Mm,
such a success, because we don't spend a lot of money on marketing. So the fact that somebody in Illinois or Chicago, or, California or Texas, saw some content or something out there and went, I love that. I wanna jump on board. So we're now in 32 states, and we ship thousands of filters out a month,
beautiful,
to states and homes all across the US. Um,
amazing.
the biggest challenge, I think, if looking back, and if I wish I could have known then what I know now, is that it takes longer than you think. I thought after we have the product and we're making it, bang, the floodgates open, we ship it all over the US, and we're multimillionaires. Not that that's the goal, but it just takes a lot longer. The marketing is the biggest challenge, is getting your product out there and making people be interested enough to say, yeah, I want to change from what I'm doing currently. That looks like a better product than what I'm currently using.
Yeah, I completely agree. It does always take longer than what every time it's always taken longer than I've expected. And then also for everybody else, seems like that's the truth too. And then also what you said about, having the product is just one thing, right? Having a great product. Unfortunately, we live in a world where the best product doesn't always win.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I don't like that. No one likes that. We think best products should always win, but the reality is distribution is more important than
Yeah.
than the product a lot of times, and that's why we have bad products sometimes in your grocery stores and in our convenience stores, because they just have distribution. But then there's this amazing product in this mom and pop shop that they've
Yeah.
been making for 20 years, but they just don't know how to distribute, or they're not connected to the right distribution channel. And
Yeah.
we
That's
see
right.
it every day.
Yeah. I mean, I had to definitely get creative. I mean, I've always been a pretty outgoing person, like to talk. And, you know, one of the goals I had was, okay, if we're not spending a lot of money on marketing, we don't have that budget yet, I've got to be the face of the company. I've got to get out there and be comfortable with social media, creating content on Instagram, TikTok, all of the platforms. And that was really what helped us get some exposure across the country. Because I think a few years back, I did a video on TikTok, and some of it is understanding the platforms. Like, I could do one post on Instagram, Facebook, but a totally different thing on TikTok to capture interest. And one video, I wouldn't say went viral, but it definitely went pretty big that weekend, and we got a lot of customers in other states from that video. So that was really useful information to say, okay, this can be done on a small budget. If the interesting video has got enough in there to pull someone in and tempt them to buy, then I got to just keep doing some more of that. So
It's amazing. You guys probably are not profitable with this business line yet, I imagine, just considering all of the overhead that you guys are manufacturing, fulfilling yourself, like doing everything yourself. I imagine you're not profitable with this business yet, right?
yeah, that'd be true, Cody. I mean, everything we've done up to this point has been put back into the business,
Yep.
especially because we are manufacturing ourselves. So a lot of us is buying the next piece of equipment that makes the process smoother for us. So we've
Yep.
invested a lot into the manufacturing part of it. And this year, we've definitely got some possible goals of taking it to the next level. So we've got it to this point where we've already been live for a number of years now and got a good number of subscribed customers. But I think our next phase in this business is to bring in some angel investors and really skyrocket to the next
Mm.
level. So
Oh,
that's
God.
our goal.
You guys are
Yeah,
thinking about raising money.
yeah. Again, it's not a world that I know of or knew of before getting into it, and we wanted to do it on our own, and we have done up to this point. Thankfully, we had the first business to fund,
Yep.
the second one, but it definitely made us move a little slower because yes, the first one's profitable, but there's only so much you can keep pulling out, to fund the second one. So we finally got it to a point where it stands on its own. It's an operating company and direct to consumer product that's working, but we want to take it to the next level now. So that's the goal this year, is to show some angel investors what we've created here and bring some, hopefully some influential people on board. I look at that in two ways. We did an audition for Shark Tank last year,
Oh, cool.
and one of the goals was that with that was we didn't really need the money because we'd already been operational. So even coming up with a valuation back then, I was like, I don't know, I don't know how much money we need, but I just want Laurie or Mark Cuban or someone
Mhm.
as the someone that
Distribution.
would have distribution, exactly, that exposure, and that's why we did it. So this time around, bit of both. Either someone that can help us with the funding part, but maybe someone that's more influential on, they're good with direct to consumer products. They smart on Shopify, or they got a bit of marketing skills they can bring to the table. So we'll
Beautiful.
see.
It's a really cool story, and I think the story is still being written, which is beautiful. That's the best stories, right? It's like we're all writing our own stories. Like we're midway through in a certain chapter, uh, but where you guys have come and kind of where you're going, it's no question that you'll be successful. It's just a matter of time. In fact, you
Yeah,
already
it's
are
been good.
successful. It's just a matter of
Yeah, thankfully, I mean, it's great that we're now at a point where we kind of, I've said it before. It's great moving forward and everything is exciting, but the feeling of giving back is even better. So we did that last year. We kind of hit a point where we had been profitable enough where we said, all right, we can start giving back and kind of help. The original idea we had is we don't want as much waste in the environment, right? We have to create a product that doesn't create as much waste. And in fact, our product is made from recycled materials, which not a lot of people put a lot of value on. They're always thinking of recycling afterwards.
mhm.
What if we can do it on the front end? So we actually partnered up with another company called Tidy Ocean last year, and they basically remove plastics from the oceans, and it's a twofold thing. One, they remove the plastic for recycling, but they also provide jobs for you know poverty areas that don't have much work. So it's a twofold thing. They create wealth, they create jobs, but they also remove a lot of plastics from the ocean. So now with every purchase of a filter, not just the first one, but every subscription order, we remove a pound of plastic from the ocean with that. So it's been
Beautiful.
an exciting partnership, and looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Me too, man. That's really awesome. I think anytime we can. I think there's a book written on this I read years and years ago. Uh, Dave Meltzer wrote this book called Compassionate Capitalism. And I'm not even sure. I forget exactly if this was in that book, but the title stuck with me of how can we use like capitalism to also benefit society. It doesn't have to be this, either or type of thing. Like
Yeah.
capitalism actually is, if it's done properly, it's really, really good for the earth. It's really, really good for the world. It's really, really good for like bringing people out of poverty and all these things. I think it's just been abused in different ways. So anytime you
Yeah.
can have your product linked to a social good,
Yeah.
it makes us feel good as an owner,
Yeah.
which is very important. Two, it makes the buyer, the consumer, very, very good too, because now their money is getting spread further.
Yeah.
And three, like the actual thing is getting benefited. Like the social cause is
Yeah, it's
improving.
it's definitely a win-win all around. I mean, I said it before, like considering myself the accidental entrepreneur. I never thought I'd be here, and don't look in the future saying I want to be a multimillionaire. Great if it happens, that's fine, but that's never my intention. It's never been my goal. So it's not about just making as much money as possible. Have a good life, have a great family, and that's most important to me. But being able to give back is a reward, and to me I feel like a millionaire already when you're able to do that, because it means you've kind of got to a financial situation where you can afford to give back with it, hurting the business or whatever. um and it's great to see, my family, my kids, like we travel a lot. My wife's really good about pulling me away from the businesses because you get so caught up in it, and
Hmm.
we do a lot of vacations together. But just my kids seeing my entrepreneurial path, and they've always been involved with it. Like they'll come to home shows and do the shows with me. And I still do that. I did two this year myself. People think I'm crazy as the owner of the companies. Like, why are you doing a home show? You learn so much from the people that are
Yeah.
at that show, either current customers that'll walk by and go, "Oh, Mark, we already subscribed, I love it," or just hearing the pain points from customers that are interested. Like, okay, so what is your main issue? Can't you find the sizes in the store? Are they overpriced? Do you not remember to change your filters? Just learning, what is their pain points so that I can bring that back to my business and go, now let me multiply that online and post a video about, those things. Because if
Mm,
one person thought that way, there's a lot of people out there thinking the same. So
yeah.
it's useful.
Beautiful, man. I think it's a good time to transition over to the rapid fire questions. So you ready?
Yeah, sure.
What's your favorite business book?
So I'm not much of a reader, never really been much of a reader, but a couple of books that I did do the audio version of it,
Fine with me. That's fine. That's reading to me.
driving on vacation, put the earpods in. And one of them that was extremely instrumental in our mechanical business was profit first.
Mm,
I had a lot of advice from people around me saying, "Hey, Mark, you need to read this book. You need to read this book." And I wasn't much of a reader, so I just kept putting it off. But especially funding the second company, it got a little tight there at times. And I was like, all right, now's the time. Let me go read this book and see what it's all about. And I followed it to the T, and it absolutely transformed the business,
mm,
without doubt. It's a number one for anyone out there that is running a business and wants to be profitable first.
beautiful. What's one thing that you wish that you knew before starting your business?
I wish I had a known how long it's going to take.
Yeah, you shared that.
Yeah, but I wish I had a known that it doesn't just matter that you have a great product. You have to know how to sell it. You know, Marketing is a big challenge for anybody out there that's got a product. I wish I'd have known more about the marketing side of things. I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, but if I had to, put more focus on that in the beginning, then when I had my product and I'm ready to launch it and get it out there, I already had the foundations already in place, like the online ads, meta, all of that stuff that works in the background. We kind of did that in reverse. So we had a product ready to sell, open the gates up, and haven't really done any marketing to actually show
Mm,
anybody it. So building the marketing foundation would have been better.
beautiful. What's the worst advice that you've ever received about business?
Oof, worst advice. Um, I would have to say that you have to go overseas to get your product made.
Hmm.
I think everyone gravitates to that in the beginning, or maybe they do it because they think it's cheaper. But there's just a lot of different reasons to not do that. And for us, most reason for it was we did it in a time of COVID, where even if you had a great product made cheaply overseas, it was stuck on the water. It was stuck in the ocean. It was in a
Mm,
container that you had no. ability to get to. So I would say that just because it may cost more to make it in your own town, in your own country, in your own home, it's worth it. You know, having the ability to have more control over it. Just, you know, don't be afraid to do that on your own.
How many hours do you think you work on your business per week?
Yeah, I think as entrepreneurs, Cody, we never really shut off, right? um, but I made a conscious effort in the last year to say, hey, we have enough structures in place. I've always been good at delegating and having good people around me to help me run the businesses where I step away and now I do a 4 day work week. Fridays is my day to wind down, either meet with other business owners, you know, play golf, have lunch, breakfast, whatever. And the beauty about that is it means I can do it when it doesn't affect the family.
Mm,
So instead of using the Saturdays and Sundays to go play golf or to hang out with your friends, but that's the time that all the kids in the family want you, right? So I didn't want to lose that. So I made a conscious effort to say, hey, I'm going to a 4 day work week. Friday is the day for me and it doesn't affect the family. And then that way on the weekends we all pull back together again.
that's really, really cool and creative way to do that. I could see value in that. If your family and your friends and your customers had to get together and write an honest article or a blog or a book or something, just a piece characterizing Mark's traits, all about you, and they had to kind of explain who you were and the characteristics that you had, both good and also bad, like positive and also negative. What are some things that they would say?
Ooh, that's a good one, Cody. um, I mean, I know they would say that Mark's probably the hardest worker they know. They kind of seen me, especially in my neighborhood. We kind of got a lot of the same neighbors that have seen me from the beginning, working in that old beat up truck, changing air filters to now where I am. But I think they would also say that he hasn't let it get to his head. Like Mark today is the same Mark that we knew that would kick back and have some beers with us in the cul-de-sac and play cards. You know, I still live in the same home that I bought back in 2007. You
Mm,
know, I think that's what I would hope they would say is like Mark hasn't changed, even though his lifestyle has.
mm. It sounds you
Yeah,
sound like you put a lot of weight on your ability to stay humble and modest.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I definitely enjoy money, and we do a lot more traveling to a lot more exotic places. But um, definitely want to stay humble, and you know, I even do things with my kids now that keep it that way. My daughter's 21. Her first car, I did not buy her car. She got a job, earned 50%. I came in with 50%. I put a bit more on, but around about that. And she has skin in the game. And now my son's about to turn 16. He's talking the same language, wanting a car. I was like, you know the rules, dude. Get a
Mhm.
job, save some money, and whatever you make, I'll match. So he's already coming to me now, wanting to start his own little business. You know, just this week he's already talking about, all right, Dad, I know I can go out there and car wash locally, detail cars, vacuum,
Mm,
whatever. I've got a business plan. I've already kind of laid it out, so he's all excited about it. And
mm,
love seeing that because he's kind of got a little bit that from watching me, but now he realizes that, you know, even at 15, where a lot of people are not hiring a 15-year-old, you can start your own. You can go out there and, you know, probably make more money washing and detailing cars in the local communities than he would working at, you know, Sonic
mhm.
or any other
Yeah.
restaurant out there. So that's exciting.
How would you define a creator? Who is a creator from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean that word is definitely kicked around a lot because everyone, I guess, taps into a bit of a creative mode now, especially with so much online stuff and people selling so much products. But I think a creator is more someone that just goes all in on it. You know, to me, if I see a creator online and they're a DIY home mom, and it's not just, you know, they're doing one DIY project and that's it. They're all in on it. They're transforming their entire house and they're creating a lot of content around it. Like someone to me as a creator is someone that just this goes all in on it. It's not just a in and out, quick in and out creation on their part. It's this is my brand. I'm a DIY mom, or me. I'm the home air filter guy. Like
Mm.
if you're gonna create, just go all in on it.
And when you say go all in on it, like you mean go all in on like creating content? Is it mostly content creation, or can it be like you're creating air filters, so you're a creator? How did you describe?
Yeah, from the way I was viewing it was more on the content side. You know,
Okay.
if someone was to go to my pages they know right away just from all of my content that I created is around the air filtration industry. And
Mm.
if anyone wants to be successful online and doing that, um, just be consistent with what your message is. What are you creating? There's so many out there that they don't have that because they're selling multiple different products for a company. They could be selling a bag one day, or you know her product, or a dog product, whatever. I think if you just stay in one lane and be really consistent with it, that just elevates
Mm.
your brand a little better.
Who do you think should be a business owner?
Oof. You know, Based on my background, I think I could say that anybody could be if they really wanted to. Um, but it's definitely someone that is not afraid of hard work, because it's not easy. It's very easy to go to work for a job, get a paycheck, and leave and go home and shut off. So as soon as you leave that office, you're done thinking about it. If you want to get into business, you've got to be that person that knows that you're never going to shut off. That brain's ticking all the time because you're always thinking about something in your business, even when you leave it. So I think business is obtainable to anybody that wants to do it. And
Mm.
especially knowing my background, like I worked in a filter air conditioning company, and eventually within I bought it. So think about that. If there's an industry you're working in, why couldn't you be the owner of it one day?
Mm.
Owners have to move on. They either outsource, sell, or they a lot of times would like to sell from within, because either they want to still be part of the business, either financially or whatever. So I would like to just say that most people that thinks it's not obtainable, like, believe a little more. It definitely is.
Mark, where can people find you? Hear more about you, follow your story, go to Filters Direct USA, like all that good stuff.
Yeah, website FiltersDirectUSA.com. Obviously, I'm on a lot of social media, TikTok, Instagram. There's Filters Direct USA, but also my personal pages. Mark McNally, says exactly what it says on the tin. So they can find me on social media, on Instagram, under Mark McNally. And you know it is me. I'm the face of the company. I own the businesses, and I'm the one doing a lot of the silly videos. But sometimes that's the way it's got to be when you're starting it.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming on, Mark. I appreciate you sharing your story, and also wish you the best success, already success, but also more success with both businesses. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy, Cody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too.